Bonjour, bienvenue à Paris. I'm one of the few French people here in the room. So before we start, I would like to thank you two sponsors, because you see, as a stupid man, I left my tablet in the car. So thanks to Therapy for the book and Siteminder for the pen. So the panel is about the true cost of distribution, which channel really is the most profitable. We have about 40 minutes for that, including Q&A. So if you have anything, if you want to ask questions, please do so. With the lights, it's sometimes difficult to see who wants to ask something, but please stand up if you have a question. So each of the panelists is going to introduce himself in a second. A very short presentation about myself. I've been starting in hospitality in 1987 as one of the invisible guys in a hotel. You see the guy at night? So I climbed to general manager. I worked a long time in hospitality technology, PMS. I've been in the early days of the channel manager of Rail Pro. I've been the European guy of hospitality technology next generation for 15 years. I've been doing consulting for many PMS companies, channel manager, and things like that. So it's, and I'm also the founder of Tendance, Hotellerie, a web magazine, all in French, about technology, marketing, distribution. So I've been involved in many work groups, many things like, about distribution, about the cost of distribution, about technology, about APIs. And I'm very proud to be here. Thanks, Sébastien, for asking me to moderate the session. So can you introduce yourself? James?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm James Bishop from Siteminder. I've been with Siteminder just about 10 years through various different roles, but really more about Siteminder. We're a global hotel commerce platform, so helping hotels to manage, market, and grow their transactions through various channels, be that online or through guest engagement, direct. I feel, really grateful to Hedner and the team for inviting us along to be part of this panel, and hopefully we've got a lot to contribute to this discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, James.
Yes, hello. My name is Egemalm. I'm Director of Distribution at Pandox. Pandox is a hotel owner in Nordics and continental Europe and has about 150 hotels, where I look after both branded and independent hotels.
Cool. And I'm Vassilis. I'm a hotelier at heart, and one of the first jobs I did in hotels was a night audit, where I was automating, getting data from all the systems to create the night audit report. And about 25 years later, I feel that I haven't really moved on, because what I do is building technology, aggregating data from all different systems. So maybe not much improvement there. But what we do at Juyo, we are a hotel data analytics and visualization platform. We aggregate data from different sources. And one of the things that we focus is empowering commercial teams to understand their cost of distribution and to drive the most profitable business.
Thank you very much, guys. Before we start, what's been the impact of the COVID on your operations? And can you see a difference between before, during, and after? Would you like to start?
Yeah, so I don't really have a hotel per se, so I think maybe probably Jens is better to answer the question. But I would say that during COVID, what we could see in the data is that a lot of people were coming to the direct channel just because they wanted to have more information. But I think that was really temporary, because after that, online travel agents took over. But I don't know what you think about that.
No, I think that in general, of course, during COVID, there was not a lot of, let's say, emphasis or focus on optimizing your distribution cost. I think it was just getting any revenue at all. So it probably took a little bit of a backseat during those couple of years. But you see now, of course, when budgets are under attack, that it's going to get more important than ever. So I think we're really seeing the pressure now from the owners of keeping the cost down and getting an optimized distribution mix.
Yeah. Well, James, you've been looking at that from...
We see it from a different view, obviously, as a technology provider to a lot of hotels worldwide. And similar, like we saw similar things in terms of, yes, direct was taking, let's call it a larger share through that period, it's no secret. But purely because, I mean, direct is an ideal channel for domestic leisure in the majority of businesses, you know, outside of the global chains. And realistically, in most regions, they were the only people who could travel. So it was not a case that, you know, direct went up, it's just everything else went down along with it. Just some went down further. Ourselves, like through that period, you know, we spent a long time focusing on how we can support the hotels through that in terms of helping them evolve their distribution mix, if that indeed was what they were looking for. A lot of the struggles is there weren't people in the hotels to do the work. So, you know, it's either they're looking to evolve it or they're looking to actually narrow it because they can't manage multiple partnerships through that period. So, you know, internally we took a lot of effort into looking at what hoteliers and what that platform's going to be like in the next sort of 3 to 5 years, rather than focusing on a period which is going to change constantly and we don't know what it's going to look like. Let's look at the next 3 to 5 years and where do we want to be there and how can we support the global hospitality industry there. So I'm actually more excited about what's coming next.
Well, it looks exciting.
Yeah.
So which type of cost should we look at when trying to understand which one is the most profitable channel? What do you think? What's your view on that?
Yeah, sure. So when we think about distribution costs, traditionally, the first thing that pops into mind is commissions. That's the traditional one. But there's much more than that. So obviously, hotels do a lot to acquire business. They, you know, spend directly. They do campaigns. There's meta search. But they also have people in hotels as well that, you know, chase corporate accounts. There's plenty of things that you do that support the overall customer journey. So in our business, when we think about distribution costs, we think about the totality of acquisition costs. So it's really about everything that supports the acquisition journey. So, you know, it can be even fees that you pay or pass-through fees or GDS or whatever. And then what you need to do is you need to allocate it at every transaction and really boil all the channels down to get to the net revenue, because otherwise you're not comparing things that make sense.
Jens, your point of view?
No, I agree. The idea of looking at holistically and sort of challenging the direct is best notion, I think, is important. So we've been on a project for about 5 years now, measuring distribution cost, let's say on a granular level, where we've got two main, let's say, buckets of distribution costs. It's your direct acquisition cost, which are the ones you can assign directly to one channel, which is a little bit what Vassilis mentioned. And then you have the sort of overall supporting cost, which is the indirect costs. And through kind of looking at them like that, you'll be able then to assign both, let's say, a channel-based yield as well as an overall net RevPAR calculation for your hotel. So I think there are ways. I think there are different methodologies on how people and how hoteliers do it, but there are definitely ways to calculate.
So how do I allocate, for example, the cost of the website, the cost of the channel manager, the cost of different technologies that you need to manage your distribution?
Yeah.
How would you share that into? Would you share that per channel, or would you say it's at the end of the year, it's only accounting and that's it?
No, so I think everything that supports the acquisition of a guest, so whether it's revenue management system or even your franchise fee, I think is part of the distribution cost calculation for a property. Because also then it becomes really interesting, right? When you start looking at, okay, what do I pay as a hotel owner to a brand to acquire business, and how much do I pay as an independent hotel on pay-per-click, on representation, on payroll to drive the same amount of business.
That's interesting, the franchise point, because the money you save on commission, you pay it to the franchise.
Or in loyalty cost.
Well, yeah, exactly. And you, have you got a different view on?
I think as an industry, the majority of savvy hoteliers, and certainly that includes everyone in this room who's a hotelier, understand the need to have that balanced distribution, and that there is a cost to direct and there's a very obvious cost to indirect. Now, the indirect is probably easier to calculate, as the guys have already explained, because you look at that commission level. I think there is a cost to as Jens explained, there's so many different costs to the direct that people don't take into account. Now, I'm more inclined to look at the cost of not, as opposed to the cost of doing, the cost of not doing. Because as we said earlier, and as we all experienced over the last couple of years, yes, the direct channel attracts a certain type of guest, wherefore, Booking, Expedia, and other OTAs and wholesalers, DMCs, travel management companies are all attracting different types of guests or a different segment or an entirely different audience. So it's actually the cost of not looking into those pieces which is actually more concerning.
Yeah.
Like if your product is very attractive to millennial or Gen Z, they're not going to book directly through your website. They're not going to find you because your website's probably not on TikTok, right? So you need to start looking at, well, okay, if these are the types of guests I need to start attracting to the hotel, I either have to spend a huge amount on my direct channel to start ensuring they're finding my direct channel because they're not looking in the typical places and they're not doing their research in the same way. Or I need to become an influencer, or I need to work with someone who can put my direct channel in that place. Or, you know what, actually that does sound really hard. I need to make sure I've got a really balanced distribution mix, and I'm working with, I'm actually questioning my partners as to, okay, how are you bringing me these guests that everyone's talking about?
Yeah, and I think to add to that, you want to look at it, let's say, from a multi-dimensional way. So you want to look at what's that source market, what's the distribution cost of that source market, through which channels are they booking, and take decisions like that as well. So you might say, hey, I want to attract that source market, it costs me a little bit more, but I want to have these customers in, that's fine. So adding more dimensions than only the channel is also important. So looking at it by source market, by segment, by agent, whatever that is, loyalty, I think that's also something.
But also this idea of the cost of doing nothing, right? Because you, in a way, theoretically now today I could go and I could stop all of my costs related to my brand web for my independent hotels, and I would probably replace 90% of that. And I'll be okay and I get it through OTAs. But what happens when I stop spending on my website? I can take away my website. I stop spending and my brand kind of disappears slowly, right? So probably short-term wise, you do have some benefits in kind of, let's say, saving, but in the long term, you'll obviously have other consequences.
What happens if you forget to pay the last Booking.com bill? That's the question.
Well, you probably, if you're in the last one, have some automation platform that ensures you're paying your bills on time, right?
Indeed.
But I think, as you say, you could turn off that direct channel and be okay for a minute of time. But no one here is suggesting you do that. But over-indexing on direct can mean that most people don't know the ROI of the majority of their marketing spend. I know, we work hard at it ourselves internally to understand exactly what the ROI is on our own marketing. And unlike most independent hotels, we've got 50 people in a marketing team, still scratching their heads as to what was the return on that particular one. You have a limited amount of budget on let's call it marketing or distribution, whatever it's going to be. I think there's the onward cost as well. So there is a lot of support through the partners. Like if you're with getting a reservation through an OTA, typically it's very easy to collect that payment now because it's going to come these days on a virtual credit card, or in some cases direct to bank. So the problem you have with the direct is like, well, okay, what if I have a problem with that card? If there's a problem with that card on a third party, it's actually someone else's problem. You can go and cancel that reservation and fill it up from somewhere else. Whereas on the direct, it's on you. So you have the positives and the negative costs on each side.
So it was my next question about virtual cards. What's the impact of virtual payments on the cost of distribution, because when you get the customer paying at the front desk, the commission is very low.
Well, I think most hotels don't have that cost lying in sales and marketing, or where, let's say, the other cost centers are. So I think, but what is happening, at least what we see, is that there's been this huge sort of shift towards virtual credit cards. And what happens is that financial controllers are seeing that all of a sudden that their credit cards processing fees have gone up 3, 4, 5 times. So it's becoming let's say an issue. And the question is, in a way, they're both sort of benefits and drawbacks of the virtual card. Front office might love it because it could sort of create some automation and safety, while for financially it's more expensive to process that card than, let's say, a personal one. And at the same time, you got revenue management, which are having problem with rate leakage because of virtual credit cards. So there's a lot of different factors. It's not, let's say, an easy. I think it depends on who you ask in the organization, which is the right right answer.
So, Juyo, do you see that too?
Yeah, well, I agree with Jens, and I think it comes back to this holistic approach. You know, if you think about it just from one dimension, then probably you're not going to take the right decision. So you need to factor everything in. I mean, maybe not everything, because it's really hard, but as much as you can, so that you can take a sensible business decision. So, yeah.
Okay. One question that some of the audience might not like. What do you think of a channel with a high cancellation rate? How does it impact your distribution cost? Who wants to get on this one? Jens?
Well, I think that in general, it depends on what channel you're thinking about. So if you have an OTA channel, actually, if they are on a cost per acquisition basis, right? So actually, it doesn't exactly directly impact your cost of distribution. Well, if you're if you're spending a lot of money on your brand web, on pay-per-click campaigns, and all of those reservations end up canceling, then you have a problem, right? So I think it depends a little bit on but obviously you're more, you'll prefer a channel with less cancellations.
Well, even if everything is automated, you still have some manual work on checking and looking at that. So you have to add this cost. And what about loyalty? We talked about loyalty earlier. How does it impact your distribution cost? You have figures, you have things you can share about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a cost, you know, if you're a hotel ownership company, or I don't know which side you're in the business, but there is a cost to loyalty, right? So there's a transaction fee to loyalty, there's points that the hotel needs to pay. So you need to factor that also in. You need to add that to your acquisition cost, and you need to compare, is this loyalty really good for me? Or, you know, does it really bring lifetime value? I mean, we can go to the discussion, you know, many steps down the road, so to speak, but it needs to be part of the discussion and the calculation, absolutely, yeah.
And I think, so one example of, we had one of the brands a couple of years ago, they ran a big campaign for loyalty to drive sort of additional brand web, to shift to OTAs, and we really saw it when it happened. The marketing really worked. But what happened when they stopped, because they couldn't obviously sustain that forever, is that we saw the contribution kind of go back to where it was again. So that's not loyalty, right? That's not converting someone into, that was kind of the impact of the marketing and the visibility, but it didn't translate into lifetime, let's say, sort of a lifetime guest into the brand, which you might have hoped for. So I think the question of loyalty to different channels also is a little bit more complex than sort of you can shift someone into a part of a loyalty program. I think guests are part of several loyalty programs and sort of use as the channel that they find most convenient at that point.
Yeah, I think you need a lot of hotels and a lot of people in your loyalty package. So we can see from Hilton, Marriott, and the likes that you know, they've got great loyalty packages and they can put a lot of resources into it. You don't have to be much smaller as a hotel group to start questioning the value of your actual loyalty package. You know, when you get down to having, you know, being a smaller regional group or independent hotels, realistically, people are not going to sign up to loyalty because you don't have enough product everywhere. You're going to need multiple loyalty packages and everything else. And actually, the loyalty goes to the OTAs, because that is effectively what they are. They're a single spot where you can get products in every place that you're likely to go and visit.
Unless you get an instant reward or something.
Yeah,
if
so
if it's
on the other
sign
side,
up and you get 5 or 10% off,
or not even sign up, but if again, people are put off from signing up. I've actually signed up. I've got about 4 or 5 hotel loyalty awards, but I've never actually booked through one of them. I've had to sign up to get Wi-Fi, or I've had to sign up so I can get into my room. So because I've just checked in online, and now I need the app because I need to get the digital key, and in order to get the app, I now have to sign up. So I've actually, I've almost got grey hair before I've actually checked in, but now at least I don't have to go to reception.
That's bribing.
Huh?
It's bribing.
Well, yeah, almost.
It's not loyalty.
But no, but loyalty for actually booking. So you can actually advertise, hey, look, book with us, and we can give you this. It's not join our loyalty scheme, get hounded by emails from another brand, but actually just to be able to say, yeah, that instant gratification of booking. And there's certainly programs and schemes that work out there for smaller brands and independents that work that way.
I think all we talked about is mainly about leisure travel. Can we have a real impact on business travel distribution costs here? What's your view on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's part of the mix, right? I think that things like your GDS pass-through fee, sort of getting your, let's say, one example of a brand which had a very high pass-through fee and had the possibility of getting that corporate to book directly with the hotel, which is a little bit sort of contradictory. You kind of want everything to come through the system, but when you have really high cost, I think one way is to kind of get your business traveler to book direct with you, if those are there. Another example is, of course, to kind of try to shift returning guests that are booking sort of commissionable rates into booking direct with you. So there's certainly ways to do that.
I think one of the problems in that is actually more in the ecosystem rather than in terms of getting past GDS fees, pass-through fees, and everything else that associated to that. Is more in the ecosystem than it is in where the guests are booking, because in most cases in business they don't have a choice. It's company policy, you book through here, right? And that basically dictates the costs onwards through that whole chain down to the hotel.
Well, true, but sometimes the pipes behind the screen are different. You could book through Booking, through Hotel Beds, through any channel, and the guest doesn't even know.
The
hotel he doesn't know that the customer is there for business. It's crazy. So it's there is something there's a gap there for hotels to understand where the guest is coming from.
Yes, if it's gone through multiple layers, I mean, you go through from a TMC to a wholesaler, through your connectivity provider into a CRS and then into the PMS. Yeah, it's Chinese whispers, if we can say that. Until by the time the reservation gets to the front desk to understand that journey and where that guest actually booked from.
Okay, but the hotel revenue is not only the room. What about F&B, activities and things like that? How do you take that into account, and how do you promote that to make more money from the guest?
Yeah, so I think I look at it from an analytics perspective, right? So I think you start with distribution cost, but I think the next thing is to understand really what is the value of every guest that comes through each channel, from every source market, etc. And by what value, I would say, how much more is this customer spending in my hotel? So I might have a distribution cost, channel that has a high distribution cost, but it happens to be active in a particular source market where actually the customers tend to spend quite a lot in the hotel. So that's an extra, let's say, element to factor in the decision. And I would argue that with everything that's happening with inflation and everything, I would add that you want to start looking at that customer profit contribution. So, it gets more and more complex, let's say, this environment as we see from the 2 days. So you need to start adding, all these extra data points to take decisions. They really boil it down to profit.
Yes, I think that when you go granular and you really start looking at your distribution cost, you have to look at total revenue.
Yeah.
So otherwise, you start making decisions based on sort of data which doesn't really make sense. And so far, I haven't seen a hotel or a company that's doing it. If anybody knows anybody that's really taking into account F&B or total revenue in their calculation, I would love to speak to them, because it's very complex. It gets very complex.
It is very, and I mean, you know, and think about if you're adding length of stay. So if you say, hey, let's see what happens if I compare, you know, one distribution cost, X spend, one night, another one, 3 nights. Where are they staying? Are they staying on peak demand? So it's a very, very complex challenge. And, you know, if you extrapolate that over, I don't know, 100, 200, 300 hotels, and then you look at it on a strategic level, then you figure out, oh, God, we have quite a major opportunity here to shift in one direction or the other, and how you organize your commercial department around that.
So do you see a trend on OTAs? These OTAs maybe for short stay and no extra spend, and some other with longer stays and a lot more expenses from the customer?
That's a simplified way.
Yes.
I think we could maybe even manage to do that today, but like to really go in granular and to see, okay, what's my most profitable channel, and like which are my most profitable guests in terms of total spend and lifetime value. Of course, that's complex, and but obviously a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
You've also got the upsell opportunity once that guest is booked, like which is higher on some channels than it is on others, depending on how much detail and how much you can contact that guest. You know, but that's not necessarily always sort of related in parallel, because it comes down to the segment, the type of guest, and what experience they're actually looking for as to how much you're going to be able to upsell them, how much they're going to actually be utilizing the facilities within the hotel, be it F&B or spa or anything else that you might get additional revenue from. And as you say, I don't think we look at this and say and really take advantage of it. It's like, yes, we could fill our entire hotel up with a conference for a week. No one's going to turn that down, right? If someone's saying, I'm buying every room, but you're selling it at 20, 25% off what would be a typical bar rate, but the hotel is full, so you don't have housekeeping, you don't have that turnover every single day, and everything is pretty easy to do. But they're on that 24-hour delegate rate. Breakfast, lunch, dinner is all sorted. You're not going to get anything else from them outside of the late night bar activity. See you later. That'll happen. It's effort versus reward, where you've got then, yes, I could fill up the hotel with a small couple of groups and full on like transient leisure for the rest of them, who are all going to go and book tables in a restaurant, drink in the bar, take a spa, and all the rest of it. I don't know how much we look into that when we say, should we take that group, which is going to give us an easy life for that week, which is a pretty hard week to fill anyway, or shall we back ourselves? Shall we go and do a promo with our channels? Is this an option? Shall we pay them more to bring us more reservations through third-party channels, because that additional revenue is, and it's because, quite often you've got your sales and marketing who aren't talking quite as much to the revenue team as maybe they should, that these opportunities are maybe missed or not explored.
Thank you. Well, time is going. Is there any question from the audience? It's difficult to see hands, but no. Wow. We've been very clear. One question. Is there a mic for... The mic is coming.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a question. I don't think you've touched on it, so I wanted to ask if you have an opinion on cost of concentration, because we've seen, I think, in the recent years since Marriott closed a deal with Expedia, there's been like a trend of hoteliers trying to concentrate distribution in very few partners. And because you've been speaking about, direct distribution, cost of marketing, cost of of actually operating the direct sales. What is your view on this trend of concentration, on instead of spreading your, I think you said this about having a balanced distribution, instead of doing this, saying, okay, we just work with 1 or 2 partners because then we have less trouble with the partners. But don't you think that in the end, this is going to be more expensive because you lose negotiation power? Obviously, if you're Marriott, you don't, because Marriott is never, they're so big, so they can still.
Yeah, I understand the point, and it's interesting, and it will. For me, it depends on where we are in the world and who you are in the world. So as you say, with Marriott, you've got a massive loyalty program. You can afford to probably think about concentrating that in less distribution and getting more integrated with one of them. But the Marriott hotels, or if you were a hotel in Europe, it's a very different view. So I know hotels in Europe who've got 45 rooms and 45 channels connected, right? There's like 1 per room. So, they're certainly hedging their bets, but it's not uncommon. Whereas in other parts of the world, you'll see hotels will say, well, look, I only need these 3 channels in my direct, or these 2 channels in my direct, and I'm okay. And the makeup of Europe, where you've got a lot of intercontinental travel, you've got OTAs in France selling hotels in the Netherlands and in the UK and in Spain, and all vice versa. You have opportunity in lots of different markets to attract different guests. US, where you've got a lot of domestic travel, they're all going to the one place. You're not looking to spread your partnerships as quite as wide. So it will really depend. I don't think that model works so well in Europe. And if you're large enough in the US, you can probably get away with it because you've got a larger loyalty package and everything else.
I think from the hotel perspective, it's basically just a question of incrementality, and whether, if I know that those 2 channels will cover 95% of let's say the landscape, will I assign resources to, I don't know, do another 40 channels, which is the other 5%. So for us, it's been a lot of those kind of discussions, saying, okay, I know that if we're going to be on more and we're going to maintain content and maintain the relationship with 10 more players, like what return is that going to give me? In terms of the time it takes. So I think it is just inevitably the fact that the 2 big ones cover so much. It has at least led now to that decision many times for us.
And I guess to clarify, with the Marriott one, I don't think they've actually necessarily reduced the amount of distributors. No. It's just all controlled by Expedia. So their wholesale rates have to go through Expedia. If you can buy from Expedia, then you can still get the rates. So effectively just reducing the partnerships rather than the opportunity.
Yeah, and sort of when you get reached out to say, okay, would you want to sort of distribute with us? So we're already distributing with most, the 99% of them, and the benefit of a direct contract and own relationship is probably just small. Potentially, yes, you will get a little bit more visibility, but it's not worth, unfortunately, the time, which is terrible, actually. But that's the reality.
Interesting question. Thank you. Another question? It's difficult to see. Thank you. So, your final answer. What's the most profitable channel for you, for each of you?
I suppose walk-in. If that exists.
I think, I wouldn't say, it varies by hotel, by market. I think ultimately everybody would love to have their direct being their most profitable. I realistically don't think that every hotel knows. They might assume it's most profitable. It might be, but it might be more profitable for them to invest in other channels at the same time.
The most profitable channel is the most profitable channel.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for attending the conference, and thank you for understanding that my English is not back yet to what it was before. And let's hope the next roundtable will be as nice as this one. Thank you.
Thank you.